there's an interesting discussion by Ibn Taymiyyah about this, because there are two models that you see from the Sahaba. The first model you see of like Umar ibn Khattab, right? And when he went into Al-Quds, Jerusalem, he came in very humbly, and he was on the camel, and he came off the camel, let his slave go on the camel, and he was dressed in a very modest manner. And then you have the example of Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, who was in fact quite lavish in his appearance. Like, he came across extremely, if you like, extravagant, some would say. But he's well presented, big palaces, big this and that. In fact, he offered justification for this, and he said that the reason is that the Romans and the Persians would consider us to be lesser than if we didn't do this. So Ibn Taymiyyah had a discussion about this, and he said the following. He said, so what is the right way then? Is it to be like to dress up in a humble manner and to not show your wealth? Or is it to show your wealth and to dress up in a, if you like, not extravagant manner, but in a way to indicate that this person is of a social standing also? And what his conclusion was, is that sometimes it's better to do this and sometimes it's better to do that. You have to be versatile enough. So in some cases, this is justified. And in other cases, this is justified. In the first case, it's justified because we were in a position of strength. So, I mean, going into Jerusalem is already an expression of strength. So what seems more virtuous is to be extremely humble at that time, to show the combination of humility and strength together. Whereas in the case of Muawiyah, there was more of a conflict going on now. Now the Romans and the Persians had become brave. So in that situation, it could be argued that actually to show your wealth, and there is a hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, إن الله يحب أن يرى أثر نعمته على عباده, or كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم, which is that Allah likes to see the effects of His blessings on His slave. And some scholars say about this particular hadith, it's talking about dressing properly, wearing things which are expensive. Some scholars say that. So I think that with this one, so for example, how I try and implement this is, if I'm with, if you like, my people, if I go to Pakistan, if I go to Egypt, I'm Egyptian, or go to Morocco, and the people there are working class people, I'll dress up in a working class manner. I've got nothing to prove. I really don't. In fact, I prefer it like that. I don't like to. I'll wear whatever they're wearing, for example. However, if I'm going to speak to, I don't know, whoever it may be, right? I'll maybe wear a nice watch, wear good clothes, something like that. So it's more situational. Mm-hmm. One has to be, and look, Hajj is a great example, because in Hajj and Umrah, Allah wants everyone to be humble. Yeah. No one's going to wear nothing. You know, take your clothes off. You're going to wear the same clothes as you're going to wear when you're going to be dead. That's what you're going to wear, because here the emphasis is on humility. So I agree with you. I think that there is definitely a place for that, for the competence, but you have to be versatile enough also to be zahid as well. Mm-hmm. And there's times where the zuhud is actually required as well.
In terms of that humility and that even slavery before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is something that brings a person up in the sight of Allah and in the sight of the people. But that kind of slavery is only appropriate for Allah. So we don't show that level of submission towards any of the creation. That's not appropriate for that. And something that the former Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, mentioned, you can agree or disagree with his policies, but something that he tried to inculcate, particularly in the youth of Pakistan, was to do away with this mentality of being a slave to anyone except Allah. Especially being a slave to the West, or being answerable to the West. You have your own culture, you have your own religion, and that, from the point of view of the religion, that is better than any other way of life. You don't have anything to explain to anyone else. So from that perspective, he gave that what is appropriate for that the situation, that before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala you are humble, and that you don't try to prove yourself in that way in front of Allah. But there's also a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ in which he is speaking to his uncle, and he's advising him to go on a particular expedition. And he says that, I hope that you will get a lot of booty, a lot of wealth from this expedition. And I believe it was Amr ibn al-As radiallahu anhu, and he responded that, Ya Rasulullah, I didn't accept Islam to get these benefits. I didn't accept Islam to become wealthy and to have all these blessings. The Prophet ﷺ, he responded to him and he said that, how good that how good is pure wealth with a pure individual, a pure man, a good man, that he has good wealth, pure wealth. as opposed to that money or that power, that influence being with someone who is corrupt. If that same wealth or power is with someone who is pious, that is only going to do benefits for a person when it comes to the point of view of money. Even if he just gives zakah, that is beneficial. And then, of course, he will give more as well, and he will have a positive
True.
influence.
I mean, there's an interesting book by Al-Ghazali, actually, in his Ihya al-Ulumuddin. He's written Ihya, and the Ihya is divided into 4 quadroons, and the last 2 quadroons, one of them is Al-Muhlikat, and then the final one is Al-Munjiyat, which Al-Muhlikat means the diseases of the heart, or the things that destroy you, effectively. And Al-Munjiyat are the things which save you, okay? And so obviously he's got a collection of books for each of those. Anyway, one of the books is about money. He does talk about money. And what's interesting is that he's got really sophisticated analysis about money, like love of money and stuff like that. The first thing he says is that human beings, and this is going to sound like almost a pseudo-evolutionary analysis, right? He goes, human beings are interested in the things that enhance their survival, okay? And so, for example, and he gives multiple examples of that, shelter, food, whatever. They love food because of food enhances your survivability. They love intercourse because that is like procreation and stuff like that. So it's, they love this and that because, so that's the first thing he says. He says, money, it's reasonable for a human being to love money. And it's not problematic from one perspective because it enhances the survival of the human being, right? But then he starts talking about the excesses of it. So now if that love, which is a natural love and is an acceptable love, becomes too much now, and the person starts to really just chase money for money's sake, and he wants to be part of the rat race. I mean, he doesn't put it in this language, but then he starts talking about that becomes unpraiseworthy. Especially in a capitalist society, we need to really be careful with this because there are, I would say, with money, with wealth, there are parts of it which, it's like fame or power. It can be praiseworthy, but it can be very addictive and it can be very dangerous as well. And so one needs to realize that. And like, for example, I'll give you an example. I don't have that much money, but I'm more famous than I'm rich. In the sense that someone of my level of fame usually is a multi-millionaire, which I'm not. But let's say for the sake of argument, when I meet somebody who knows who I am, like this morning I was in a hotel, I was eating my breakfast, and this guy came, he's non-Muslim. He said, I've been watching all of your videos. I was very surprised, he had tattoos all over his body. So let me take a picture with you. Okay, he took a picture with me and I said, what's his name? And he gave me his name and I waited for you in the lobby. But this particular person, okay, what's he taking a picture with and why? Is he taking a picture with me or is he taking a picture with my fame?
Right.
So if I was not famous, would he treat me in that same way? Would he speak to me in that same way? But it was a very beautiful moment in Pakistan. This was one of my most special moments in Pakistan, and you'd be surprised. Where we went to a mosque to pray, and there was like a madrasa going on at the same time. And there were these kids that were reading the Quran. They didn't know who I was. They didn't speak English, nothing. And I could see they didn't know. They were doing their thing. If they did know, they'd be standing up and trying to take pictures of me, whatever it may be. But when I was leaving the masjid, there was 2 of them, maybe 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old. I think this one was about 10-year-old. And he stood up, and he, with the greatest respect, shook my hand, and showed me out. Now that was more special than, with all due respect, most people coming and asking for pictures, because he was doing it because of Allah. Right. He's been taught to do it, and because of who I was, he saw me as an elder in the community, and it wasn't due to my fame. And so I differentiate between people in my life who act with me in a certain way only due to my fame, and people who act with me despite it, and they can never be equal. That's why people who, before I became famous with part of my life, will always have, in a sense, a rank above, frankly, because you're doing it not due to my fame, but despite it, that you have this relationship with me. So money and fame are similar in that regard, because if a woman wants to marry a man because she's because he's got lots of money. What is she actually marrying? Is she marrying him or is she marrying his money? Is he his money? I mean, the question is a man his fame? Is a man his money? I want to put to you that a man is not his fame, a man is not his money, and a man is not his power. These are two things independent of each other. So if someone likes you because you're famous, or someone likes you because you're rich, or someone likes you because you're powerful, they don't actually like you. They like power, fame, and money. That's what they like. And because you can provide, you're a supplier. You're the drug supplier. The similitude of you is the same similitude of a drug dealer. You're a drug dealer. That's what you are. All you're doing is you're dispensing to certain people that which they like. They don't like you that much. They don't care about you. If you died, they wouldn't care. It's just the fact that they care about your fame, or your money, or your whatever it may be. So one has to be careful of that, because money, some people think, and it's a capitalistic mindset, that when you become more famous, or when you become more rich, or when you become more powerful, then you get everything you want in life. You get some of what you want in life, but you actually get a lot of liabilities as well. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what made him the greatest leader of all time wasn't that he was offering money to people. It was that he was offering love to people. Love of Allah and love of himself. And the people loved him, and the people loved Allah. Hence, they would die for him. I was having a conversation one time with a person, and he was talking about the most influential people. And he was saying the best thing to do is just become a tycoon, and get money and all this kind of thing. Because look at for example, Colonel Saunders. He said, KFC, multiple branches. Look how much power this man has. This is what he was saying to me. I said, let's stick on your worldly and materialistic analysis for a second. Yeah. Let's stick on that analysis. Even with what you're saying, he's not the most powerful. Say why? Say, are people working in KFC willing to take up arms and risk their lives and give their lives for Colonel Saunders? No. So objectively, he's not more powerful or more influential than somebody who has instilled love into somebody else. And there is a reciprocal relationship of love. And then that person he goes out and he would do anything for that person, you see. There is a film which I watched when I was younger. A Bronx Tale, I think it was called. I don't know if you watched this before. And it was Robert De Niro and this young man, okay? And this film was all about the following. This young man, he had two people, and the script writer was very clever, because he actually combined classical philosophy and literary marvel to produce this thing. Very interesting, the way it actually kind of unraveled, I think. Because the guy had the boy had two male role models. He had his own father, who was a hard-working, quote-unquote, hard-working man. He was working as a bus driver, Robert De Niro. And he had this other person, who was a mafia leader. He was offering money, he was offering status, he was offering prestige, and so on and so forth. And in fact, there was a key part of this film, which I won't forget, where he was asked, he said, would you rather be loved or would you rather be feared? This is what he said. And he responded in this film, he said, I would rather be feared. That's what he said. That was his mentality. And then he actually quoted Machiavelli. Now, Machiavelli wrote this book called The Prince, and it was all about how to control people effectively. But it was for princes. He said, I'd rather be feared. Now, near the end of the film, this mafia leader got shot and died. Now, everyone was there in his funeral, and they were literally just eating and drinking as if it was a party. No one cared about this guy. No one cried. There was not a tear that was shed. I think it was one or two people. Only the boy was affected by him dying. And the moral of the story is, when you build an empire on money, power, and fame, and dispensing these kind of things to people, it becomes a very fragile empire. It becomes very weak, and that's not the model of the Prophet Muhammad of leadership. It's not his model. His model was building love relationships. Now these people that are Machiavellian and that read 48 Laws of Power and Human Nature and Robert Greene's books, they're playing checkers. They are playing checkers. And, you know, they are playing checkers, bro. And this level where you're getting people, the best leverage is love. Getting people to love you and you love them and these kinds of things, and they have a cause and a transcendental cause, and that's chess now, high level chess. And so I do think that a lot of the things which we think is so required and stuff like that, it's just, we must be aware. A lot of it will just be because we have been, in a sense, brainwashed by the West, by the capitalistic enterprise and stuff like that. So we have to be careful. Because even if you do want to control people and have an empire and do this and do that, how many millionaires in the years 1980 to 2000 have made their mark on history? How many of them? Like big-time tycoons? Not really. Okay, in the 1600s, how many millionaires do we remember? None. But we all remember William Shakespeare, who died in 1603. He's on the notes. I opened up my passport. I saw his face on my passport, bro. What money did he? He wasn't like necessarily doing that for that reason. Bro, there are atheist philosophers, people like Spinoza, who literally had money and gave it away because for them they understood true legacy isn't in this. So what I'm saying is that we need to get it right. I mean, there's no problem having some money and using it and stuff like that and helping and charity but we need to kind of not be sucked into modern day, I think, conceptions of money, which is because there are lots of things in the hadith literature, for example, in the Quran, ta'isa abdu dinari wa dirham, that perished be the slave of a dinar and dirham, which also, as you'll see if you read that book on Ihya al-Muddin, about Al-Ghazali's discussion of money, for example, is unpraiseworthy, I would say. So one has to balance that one.